So focus on the data that matters to you. That's a different kind of thought to start there. And I heard Isaac saying that yesterday, how important that was, to start with why we are here. Why are we here as an organization? What is the need that we're trying to address, and what would success look like if we did that as an organization, as a program? The key question, what will success look like? And tying that to the mission that people are passionate about. I suspect that most of the people in your organization are not there for the money, such as it is. They're there because they believe in your mission. And what will success look like? That is key. And that informs the data that matters. What does success look like for us as an organization? What does success look like for my team as a manager? How do I define success? And what does success look like for me as an individual? And that is so important. What does success for my participants look like for me when I'm dealing with someone in real crisis? And just getting them stable is a major victory. Getting them a job, that's way down the line. But I need to know that there's some success measures for getting them from being in crisis to being a little bit more stable, that that's a success. And I need to know what that looks like. So finding ways to identify what success looks like and focusing on that data that matters to you. And then, as Isaac said yesterday, then what do the funders want? Hopefully there's some dovetailing there. But that was really key among these organizations. And then, it sounds so easy and obvious, but so many of us don't do it. Keeping it visible. Keeping what success looks like and how we're doing as visible in as many different ways as we can, so that you can see progress, so that you know what our goal is and where we are. So you can celebrate where we are and keep focused on where we aren't yet. And by being visible, I mean, think of the ways that your success is now visible in your organization. I mean, I can picture the job board in the organization I worked with for 25 years. And not only did it say, Jane got a job at Methodist Hospital, but at the top it said, our job placement rate right now is 85%, and our job retention rate is 83%, and our average wage is this. And you knew every day, everybody on the staff knew what it was, because they saw it every day. But you also had charts in a staff planning room. You had charts up on the wall, but then you even had goals on meeting agendas. And some of my colleagues are putting things in screensavers. And, so that when people boot up, they see what the goals are and where they are. Keeping things visible is so key. 1, to stay focused on what matters, and 2, to be able to celebrate progress. The second theme, and I think we sort of touched on it a little bit yesterday, but the more I talk with organizations, the more key I hear that it is. And it was certainly my experience, is that we use data and we work on the inquisitive mind. We use data to catalyze questions, not the conclusions. It's easy to say, oh, we're doing fine, or oh, we're doing awful. But no, it's not the end, it's the beginning. Using data at every level of the organization to start a conversation with lots of questions. Where has there been improvement? Where has there not been improvement? Which particular people have been improving? Why might that be? When are people falling off? Why might that be? How does this compare to last year? What's different? What did we do differently? Our role as change agents is to ask lots of questions. Because out of those questions come the story that Mark was talking about yesterday, the story behind the numbers. And it's those questions that tap the wisdom of our frontline staff, They know what's going on in their gut often. They know what the experience is. And you can ask questions of your staff using a report to help get that story out. So our role is to ask questions. And I don't know who said it yesterday, but to use every interaction at every level of the staff organization to do that. Supervisor to frontline staff, manager to manager, executive director to manager, managers among each other. It's particularly important to be asking these questions across your functional areas. Being able, in our organization, being able to look at job retention, which was a key success indicator, and to have a conversation between the recruiters, the trainers, the job placement folks, the case managers, the receptionist. They all had different perspectives on what was going on with job retention and what might help increase our effectiveness in that area. So your job, and the key strategy here is just to institutionalize that time for dialogue around the data. It can't be a quick, well, here's the data for the quarter. You did good. Building in that dialogue time is an absolutely critical piece, but a very doable piece of building this culture of continuous improvement. And you can make it fun. There's an organization in Boston that I've done a little bit of work with who have several little work teams right now that have identified a particular outcome they want to work on improving. They're teams of 2 or 3. And they collectively have called themselves Teams Accomplishing Successful Outcomes. TASO is their acronym. And they even have T-shirts. And they meet and they share with each other as a learning community. And they spend most of their time coming up with hunches about what's behind this data, what could we learn from it. The third strategy that came out in our report was make staff jobs easier with data. Now, it's very obvious that data makes the manager's job easier, makes the person writing the funding grant's job easier, but it's a lot of work. There's got to be some return for frontline staff who are generating the data. So as much as the data you're creating can make their jobs easier in terms of helping them know who needs to be called this week and why, or where are the particular resources that I can tap to help this person in this part of town, finding a variety of ways that frontline staff can also say, oh, this helps me get my job done more quickly. This saves time. This gives me instant access to information so I don't have to look for it anymore. That gets buy-in going really well if they see what's in it for them. I was thinking of, some of you have heard me tell this story. When I was a director, we had, for some odd reason, a lot of trouble getting people to put zip codes into the database. It was like, I don't want to look it up. I forgot to ask. No big deal. And it was one of those things that kept showing up as missing data. And so, and I think sometimes staff don't understand the treasure trove they have when they have data. And so in a staff meeting, I said, all right, time out. We brainstormed for 15 minutes all the different ways that each person in that staff could use a list of zip codes in terms of where people lived who were enrolled in our program.